Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And now your host, Ben Adelberg.
And thanks again for joining me here at the Back of the Range Golf Podcast for this special bonus episode. I'm your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 66. Well, today is Friday, March 22nd, 2019. Normally our episodes are released like clockwork every Wednesday morning. Well, we recorded a great episode yesterday that we were very fortunate to get. And I started thinking last night, why the hell would I hold this over till next week? Let's just get it out there so everyone can enjoy it. For those of you following on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, you knew about this since this morning. You are the insider, so to speak, here at the Back of the Range. So if you still have not done so, check out the show notes of this episode or go to our website, thebackoftherange.com. Start following us on social media because these bonus episodes are going to start happening more and more. Our special guest here today at the Back of the Range Golf Podcast, the United States Amateur Champion, Viktor Hovland. If you don't know much about Viktor Hovland, he's from Oslo, Norway. He followed his fellow Norwegian Christopher Ventura to Stillwater to attend Oklahoma State University. He's represented Europe twice in the Palmer Cup, won numerous events in Norway as a junior, and was part of last year's national championship team. Viktor steamrolled through the competition at Pebble Beach last summer and won the U.S. Amateur after only being down in one match for one hole, the entire match play portion. He is part of the Cowboy juggernaut that is working to go back-to-back at Nationals, but before that, he's going to go play the Masters. Down in Stillwater, Oklahoma, it's spring break, so Viktor was available to the media yesterday to discuss his upcoming appearance in the Masters. His coach, Bratton, was available as well, since he will be on the bag. We had Coach Bratton on the podcast last year, so after you listen to this episode with Viktor, go ahead and check out Coach Bratton's episode as well. The link will be available in the show notes of this episode as well. Before we get going with Viktor's episode, a special thanks to the Oklahoma State Athletic Department for coordinating some time with us today. They are the #1 ranked golf program in the nation, and it's not just because of the team on the course, it's their entire team off it as well. So let's welcome in the All-American Junior from Oklahoma State, the #2 ranked amateur in the world, and the United States Amateur Champion, Viktor Hovland. Viktor, welcome to the Back of the Range. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I know that you're dealing with a media day over there in Stillwater. A lot of media talking to you about your upcoming appearance in the Masters. I wanted to try and do something a little bit more fun for you. I know you've gotten a ton of questions about the victory at Pebble Beach and what it's going to be like to play in the Masters. So we try and do our research here at the Back of the Range. We try and make sure we don't ask questions that you're normally asked. So let's try and have a little fun here. If I ask you a question today that you have heard just ad nauseum, feel free to reply in Norwegian, and that will kind of let me know that I need to get off that and that I'm not doing my work. So
that is interesting. All right. I'll make sure to do that.
Okay. So if I'm going to ask you the question, this is a trial. Okay. So this is my warm up one, but if I asked you a question hypothetically, like, how special is it going to be to drive down Magnolia Lane in a few weeks? Your answer would be?
Ooh, I actually haven't gotten that question.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding.
All right. Well,
it's all been about playing the Masters. It's not driving down there. Well, first of all, I haven't had my driver's license for that long, so I'm going to be pretty nervous, almost more nervous than playing a tournament because I might hit one of the freaking trees.
Wait a minute. So a rookie playing in the Masters is more nervous about hitting a tree with his car than off the first tee. Okay.
100%.
All right. I like it. Well, who's driving you there? Like you're not going to trust yourself. Like, how are you getting there? What's your group looking like?
Well, I'm going to have my whole family down there.
Good.
Or a big chunk of them. And Coach Bratton's going to caddy. So hopefully I'll rely on his experience when it comes to driving as well.
Of course.
Not just on the course.
Of course. Well, that's great. You know, that's great because I was going to ask you who was going to caddy for you, and I'm assuming that question you would have received already. So,
yep.
So you got Coach on the bag. Perfect. Well, you've been super busy. You know, you were just down playing at the Arnold Palmer Invitational Orlando. I'm assuming you shot back to school really quickly, and then you're right back here in South Florida playing in the Valspar. You tied for fifth, doing all this media. What are some of the challenges that you have just balancing this crazy life that you have with all of these golf accomplishments? But also, I mean, I'm assuming your professors would like you to attend some classes here and there, right?
Yeah, thankfully I have a couple of online classes, but yes, it's been a very big change. Obviously, I've gotten the opportunity to play a couple of tour events and professional events, and on top of the college tournaments as well. I definitely find myself being on the phone a lot more.
Sure.
Just talking to people all the time, and which I enjoy doing, but it's definitely a change of pace. I need to be more efficient with my time. If I'm practicing, I need to practice on the things that I need to work on,
Sure.
which has honestly been challenging because I'm a pretty laid back guy. I like to just wake up in the morning, and if we have workouts, we work out. And then when we're going to the course, I like to take a little long lunch, hang out with the guys and just talk. And then, I'll go and hit some balls and play 9 holes. And instead of going home or doing whatever, I'll sit inside the locker room and chill for 30 minutes and then go back out there, smack some more balls. So I spent a lot of time at the course, and not all that time is spent practicing,
Right.
Which is just kind of how I go about my business. I like to do it in the pace that I like to. So I might have to get a little better doing that stuff, or being more efficient.
Yeah,
but
life might get a little more complicated,
Yeah.
Well, I know that you're a little laid back, not because I have met you or spent any time with you, but in preparations for this episode, we do a little research, and we find ways to reach out to people. And, I actually spoke with Christopher Ventura yesterday. And
Really?
And I said, I'm talking to Hovland for the podcast. I said, I've seen every clip. I've seen every highlight. I'm not just going to read all these stats off to him that he already knows and people and our listeners already know. But, Ventura plays the minor league golf tour down here in South Florida. Scott Turner is the director, and he helped put us together. And I said, what do I need to know about Hovland? And he gave me a bunch of stuff that we can't repeat on this episode. No, I'm kidding. But I said, what do I need to know? I want to know something about this guy. And he's like, well, he's pretty laid back, and he kind of does his own thing. So when you mentioned about having the restriction of your own personal time, you told me that you spend time on the phone. I know that you are into podcasts. I know that you're into movies. So let's move away from the golf a little bit. Let's talk some movies. What movies do I need to see? What is stuff that you've been watching on the road or on flights coming to or from tournaments? What do I need to know?
So, we just started talking about the time management deal. When I was in high school, I think I would probably say over the 3 years, I averaged a movie per day.
Okay.
For 3 years. I watched a lot of movies, but now the last couple of years, I really haven't watched any movies at all. But, I really like Interstellar.
Okay.
A lot of the Christopher Nolan movies,
Yep.
Inception, and all those kind of mind-twisting movies. But there's also a bunch of, underrated movies that I kind of like. As long as they have an interesting plot, I like to watch them. So there's a really low-budget movie called The Cube, and The Exam, and just a lot of weird stuff.
Okay, well, I'll have to look up some of those. I haven't heard. I mean, I know the Christopher Nolan, and yeah, he just completely turned around the whole Batman, the Batman series with his work, and I love Inception too. So I'll look into that. All
right.
But besides my podcast, what other podcast do you listen to religiously? He said that you're like 2 hours a day on podcasts. That can't be true.
I used to. Again, it's been harder to keep up, but I used to listen to podcasts every day.
Nice.
And I used to be. I still listen to them, but just not as much. The Joe Rogan podcast.
Yep, I love Rogan.
Yeah, I don't listen to every single episode because he puts them out there.
They're like 3 and 4 hours long.
Yeah, yeah. But I usually, if I like the guest or I've heard of him or like the topics are interesting, I'll listen to him. But the one podcast that I listen to all the time and every single episode it used to be called Waking Up with Sam Harris. And I think now it's Making Sense with Sam Harris. He just changed it. So he's like I think he's a neuroscientist, and he's now an author and kind of talking about, philosophical things like AI and free will, if there's a free will or not, and kind of politics. And it's all pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, and this kind of ties into something that Christopher said. You're not just about golf. Like, you actually have other facets of your life that you're passionate about, and it sounds to me that you're pretty well balanced. What's a good Christopher Ventura story? We always like letting guests kind of go back and tell stories about previous guests, or actually future guests in this case, because he is going to be on the podcast in the future. So give me a good, this is your guy. It was Team Norway in Stillwater last year, but he's gone. He graduated. Yeah. This was your guy last year. This guy's, semi or pretty closely responsible for you getting to Stillwater.
For sure.
Yeah. So give me a good Ventura story.
I'm really bad on just like on top of my head naming stories, but he's been very helpful for me when I started school, because I didn't really know anyone, and he was kind of like an older brother to me. He helped me buy a car and all that stuff, and just kind of
he's the one. Yeah. So he's the one. His name, his shit. His name is
finagled me the way to get a car, which was nice to me, but probably not nice to everyone else.
I was going to say, this guy's name is on the title of the car that's going to knock out a tree at Augusta National.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
We'll just blame Chris.
Yeah, it's not your fault.
Exactly. But I remember, a lot of times we would hang out on the course and play, and, we would play 9 holes when it would be, 15 below 0 Fahrenheit.
Right.
And just, the greens be frozen, and we would freeze our butts off, and we would just kind of laugh about it and play. And then, next weekend it'd be sunny, and we would go out fishing and, just have a good time. So, yeah, it's just like we had a bunch of good times together.
That's great. Well, I cannot wait to talk to him. I know he got that bad luck with the appendicitis and kind of dumped him out of that Q school. But it sounds like he's keeping his game sharp, and he's going to kind of round to doing a bunch of Monday qualifiers and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about that tournament you're going to play in Georgia. Now, I think everyone knows that this happens in a couple weeks, but you've known about this for quite some time. Obviously, as soon as you get into the finals at the USAM at Pebble Beach, you're going to Augusta. I'm sure that the highs and the lows and everything that's kind of come since then has kind of faded in a little bit more of a consistency. When did you start arranging your first visit to Augusta National? Because I am assuming that you are not going to play the course for the very first time, Masters Week.
So actually, I haven't been there yet.
Really?
I have not.
They'll let you there. Just call them up and ask them. Tell them who you are.
I'm too shy.
I was wondering about that, because how do you not just be like, excuse me, hi, I'm Viktor Hovland. Can I get in? Late tea time? Can
every day for the next 3 months?
How do you just not like overstep? But also, why wouldn't you just be like, look, I know I'm going to at some point turn professional and I'll have a chance at it, but hey, why wouldn't I just, wear out my welcome a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, since I've had the opportunities to play a few PJ tournaments and, professional events on top of the college stuff, it's been a very hectic schedule.
Sure.
It seems every time I come to Stillwater, it's just for a little, I just pop in for a couple of days and then I'm on the road again.
Yeah.
So I really just have not had the opportunity to, just kind of settle in and think about, okay, now I want to go to Augusta and play. but I tried to do it a couple weeks ago, actually before Bay Hill, but I didn't really feel like my game was as good as it needed to be. So I decided to go down to Florida and see my coach and work on a couple stuff. But I'm playing next week. I'm playing the Georgia Cup, and I'm planning on driving to Augusta right after that and play a couple rounds.
Good for you.
I think also that that might be the latest I can probably play the course before the Masters week, and I think maybe that's a good thing because the course will be, close to ready for the tournament.
Of course. And, and then on the other hand, maybe, less practice rounds, maybe you just go in and treat it like another tournament. So who knows, maybe that'll work out in your benefit as well.
Yep, exactly.
Practice rounds. Have you reached out? Do you have a wish list?
We haven't set anything specific up for the practice rounds, but I've kind of gotten to know Charles Howell a little bit. He's been very good to me over the past few weeks and months when I've played the few PGA tournaments that I have.
Sure.
So I might do something with him, and coach has been talking to Ricky a little bit about, maybe setting up with some of the bigger names, but we'll see.
Do you have any shame at all of going up and getting Sergio Garcia's autograph? Because I know you're a big fan of him. Are you going to try and play it cool, or are you just going to not even try and just be like, "Excuse me, Mr. Garcia, I'd just want to introduce myself."
I'll make sure to big time him.
Yeah.
No,
now, come on, that'd be really great if you're actually able to do that.
I'm not a big autograph guy.
Okay.
But and I'm not, us Europeans, we're not the best at just walking up to random people and just start talking.
I know.
But I'll make sure to stare him down from a distance. How about that?
Yeah, just maybe accidentally just blade a ball across the chipping green into the bunker when he's there. Just hello, nice seeing you. You mentioned your swing coach, Denny Lucas. So I know that you kind of were struggling a little bit with your game a few months before the USAM, and then things kind of took off. But we have a lot of people listening to the podcast that are, whether they're 15 handicappers or 5, or they're even junior players that are going to go down the same road of playing collegiately. How do you pick a swing coach? How does someone that is an elite amateur, you kind of have to be aware of what you're getting into, because it's not just like, okay, I want to go see a guy for a quick lesson to shave a couple strokes off. You're putting together a collegiate career, hopefully leading into a professional career. How did that start with him? How did you get to know to trust him to put your swing in his hand, so to speak?
So I used to have a coach back home in Norway, and I still talk to him, and he's a good friend, and we get along great. But I wanted something kind of a different input to my swing. And I used to, I'll be on YouTube the whole night, just looking at golf swing videos and analysis and tips and whatnot. And I found this one guy. His name is Kelvin Miyahira, and he's based in Hawaii. And I found his YouTube channels, and I started, listening to all the videos, and I thought he had a very unique way of explaining things, and I figured out he had a website and a bunch of articles on there. So I started reading them, and I was very intrigued. So I reached out, and I just started sending videos online. So I was still in Norway, and he was in Hawaii, but I was sending videos to him online, and I got to meet him once in Jupiter.
Okay.
But a couple of years ago, he had a stroke and got sick. And he's still trying to recover from that. And Denny Lucas at the time was his right-hand man. And, I kind of naturally progressed into working with him, and we've been working with each other since then.
Very cool. Yeah, because he is certified with his teaching. So, yeah. All right. So it's definitely something that you did a lot of your research. So you kind of like the analysis aspect of it. How do you?
I do.
Okay. So how do you? And because I just saw DeChambeau on Faraday the other night, and that's a whole other end of the spectrum. But I guess my question is, do you take the analytical mindset out on the course with you, or do you keep that on the range and try and clear your mind on the course? Like, how do you balance how do you balance that?
I keep that on the range.
Okay.
I'm very technical off the course, and I like to know a lot of stuff, and I like to improve all the time. But when I'm on the course, I keep things very simple.
Okay.
Even if I like it or not, I'll play with what I have, and there's a lot of feel that I'm using when I'm on the course. But then, when I'm not playing a tournament, I'll, evaluate my game, and I'll reach the conclusion that, okay, this was not very good. How do I need to improve it? And then I'll talk to my coach, and we'll try to figure it out. And then I'll be working on that when I'm not playing tournaments.
Makes perfect sense. We're going to jump around a little bit. I'm not going to give the full, beginning of your journey in golf. I know you kind of picked up the game in Norway. I believe your dad got you into the game, and things kind of turned for you when you all of a sudden were like, okay, in the winter, I want to find a place indoors to hit balls, and let's make this kind of a passion. But you get recruited. Coach Bratton was in Europe, saw Chris Ventura, also saw you, kept an eye on you, and that's kind of what got you to Stillwater. But you're from Norway, and I guess it's funny. You mentioned that you're kind of laid back. You kind of go at your own speed. And as soon as you get over to the United States, and then you get over to Oklahoma, the one of the best exports of American culture, a reality show gets dropped on you. What was your reaction? I mean, you're trying to get acclimated to Oklahoma and college and golf, and then you find out that Ricky Fowler's going to do a TV show, and oh, by the way, it's focused on your golf team.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I would never imagine what has happened to us, not just me, but just the golf team, and the amount of publicity that we've gotten throughout the last couple of years. Just before moving to the U.S. as just a normal Norwegian kid.
Yeah, because you're not expecting any of this stuff. You're thinking, I'm going to take a few classes, play some cool golf, and maybe I'll turn pro, and we'll see.
Yeah, so that's definitely been an eye-opener to me, kind of how big college sports are in the United States, and kind of what opportunities you can get from it if you perform well. So that's been pretty crazy. And I used to be I still am, but I used to be way more reserved, pretty introverted. At night I'd be exhausted. I was just sitting in my dark room with a headset on watching movies. So, when suddenly there's going to be a TV show and they're going to follow you around with the cameras up in your face, that was definitely
I can imagine
a big difference. But and also with the culture, people are a lot easier to talk to over here. People talk to strangers all the time, and so that's definitely helped me not change, I would say, but at least adapt to, now it's funny because I'll be at the airport and I'll say something and start a conversation. I would never do that before. I'd be scared to death to talk to someone.
Right. Well, and I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but it really is not in the Scandinavian culture. I've been to Stockholm. I can't say that Sweden and Norway are exactly the same, obviously, but I know in that kind of area of the world, you don't necessarily talk to strangers on the street. You don't necessarily make eye contact. So it's not at all. Yeah. No, I've been there and experienced that. I was like, wow, this is this is a little different. Who did it take you long to get comfortable in front of the camera? Like there's no way you were the worst. I mean, you seem very confident, during interviews that I've seen and then on the show. Who had to do the most retakes?
I don't know, to be honest. We didn't really do any retakes. I think they just cut it all out. The things that we did bad, but it's a little different one-on-one interviews, because then it's only you,
right?
But then I think it's more difficult in a group because, at the same time, we're all good friends, but there's usually one or two guys that, like to steal the show, to put it that way.
You can say his name. We all know who you're talking about. It's okay. It's okay.
Not in a bad way, but just kind of the bigger personalities show up, and then you want to keep it family friendly, and so it's you kind of just sit there. Okay, well, what should I say that does not make me look stupid? And then you just end up saying nothing at all.
Right, you're like the deaf mute of the golf team. Like, yeah, that's Victor. He doesn't talk. Yeah, you don't want to do that either, right?
Exactly. So, but it definitely took a long time to get adjusted to. But then you start to get to know the guys behind the camera, and it becomes very natural. Yeah,
they want to take care of you too. They're not trying to get you. They want to put you in a good spot and have a little fun with it.
Yeah. Except for when they ask questions about OU, they definitely weren't thinking about your best interests with that.
They were doing that crap to you guys?
Oh yeah, they were trying to get a reaction, trying to make good TV.
Oh, well, that is actually an interesting strategy. So you really can't fault them for that. But wow.
No, but they were all good. They were all good.
Okay, and just for the record, we were not talking about Matthew Wolff when we said to someone that wants to be the most noticed. We were not doing that. So just make sure we have that on record.
Exactly.
So team formats. So we're going to jump around just some kind of miscellaneous stuff. Team formats. You've had great success, European amateur team stuff, Eisenhower Trophy. You've represented Europe twice in the Palmer Cup. I would imagine that somewhere down the line you would like to hear your name announced as a member of a European Ryder Cup team. So let's have a little fun here, regardless of age or who might be on that team. Who's a Euro Ryder Cupper that you would love to be your partner for that opening match?
Wow, that's cool. Just any European?
You can grab anyone you want to. You can grab someone that you think's going to be with you in 10 years or someone that maybe someone you can grab out of retirement as Victor's captain's pick, so to speak, and that's going to be your partner for the first match. You can pick anyone you want to.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So when I played the European boys team championships in Scotland for the first time, I played with a veteran on the national team. His name is Christian Johannesson. He plays a European tour right now.
Okay.
And I remember I was so nervous, and he's played a bunch of them. So I kind of relied on kind of his experience, but we ended up both playing awesome in the foursome matches that we played and just blitzed the other countries. And we had so much fun, and we were just fist pumping and high fiving all the time. So that'd be really cool to play with him there. Obviously, Christopher Ventura.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. But yeah, other than that,
what would it be like?
Henrik Stenson or Sergio Garcia? I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. No, those are all pretty good names. That's actually very cool that instead of you picking a marquee name, your first thought was someone you played, boys tournament. That's very, very cool. So hopefully both of you guys make it there at the same time. For something that Ventura did for you, what are some things that you would pass along to a future standout junior from Norway that would call you up and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to college in the States and playing golf, not so much Oklahoma State, but, or maybe specific to Oklahoma State. What are some things that, now that you've been doing it for 3 years, you've been in the States, is there anything you can pass along to a junior player from Norway? Like, don't do this, or don't, besides driving, you're not putting out any driving videos on YouTube anytime soon, I hope.
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's kind of, I still feel like I'm that guy who just came to college and was used to, kind of relying on Chris a little bit and my other teammates, but then suddenly now I'm an upperclassman and trying to teach some of the freshmen around a little bit and, kind of helping them if they need something and kind of getting used to that, which I'm not used to. It's still weird to think about that I'm, giving advice to other people. There's a lot that goes to it, but I would say that, it's very important to listen to everybody, listen to all the different arguments to every single side,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to make up your mind. You know, I've always been a fan of, you know, not just listening to one person, because then it's very easy to, you know, you're just doing what he's doing.
Right.
But if you can evaluate, okay, that makes sense, but why is this guy opposed to what he's saying? And then you listen to his arguments, and then you figure out, oh, okay, well, I could see how both make sense, but, you know, I think personally, if I go to college, for example, let it be that I'm going to be a better player doing that at Oklahoma State than, for example, turning pro out of high school. So you just kind of need to figure out, okay, this is what worked for you, but how is this going to work for me, if that makes sense?
Makes perfect sense. You're weighing all your options and making an educated decision. So that's fantastic advice.
Yeah. So I would say I get some people asking me, you know, should I go to college or not? And I would say, yes, you should at least try it out, because you can always leave. But that doesn't mean that every single college is going to make you better. I think college golf is great and prepares you really well, but I've been very lucky going to Oklahoma State and having the right fit. You know, I just mentioned earlier that I'm a little introverted. I kind of like the less distractions and like the quietness around me. And for that reason, Stillwater is perfect. Like, you're here for golf, and it's just you can do your own business and people are nice. But you know, if I would have gone to maybe Arizona State or Florida State or a bigger town, I might have struggled. So it's just, you know, you look into things that you think is going to be the right fit for you.
Well, and the other thing that I thought about too when getting prepared to talk to you today is you win the U.S. Amateur, and if you went to a school that did not have such a rich history and pedigree in golf, you might have been just the big focus for the entire time from when you won at Pebble to right about now when you're getting ready to go play the Masters. But your team and all the people on that team, whether it's Eckroat and you know, Wolf and Zach Bouchot and all these players, you know, they're all having tremendous success as well, where you're kind of just in a spot where this is the normal. This is the norm.
Exactly.
So you probably got pretty much unpacked the USAM victory, I'm assuming, pretty closely after you won, and you went back to business as usual, right?
Yep. That's exactly right. And I remember that was one of the reasons I came to school here. On my visit, I looked down the hallway and just saw all the trophies and looked at the wall. You got Hunter Mahan, Ricky Fowler, you know, Bob Tway, Scott Verplank. There's so many good names on the wall. And then, you know, you can easily think you win a college tournament and think, okay, I'm the freaking guy.
Yeah.
I'm playing so sweet right now. But then you look around, oh, you know, Scott Verplank won all those tournaments as an amateur. I should probably, you know, get back to work and win a couple more tournaments before I think I'm any good.
Sure. That's very, very cool when you're able to, you know, besides Ricky, who is someone, because I don't know, are you a big golf historian? Are you big on history? Do you know, all the history of Oklahoma State, or are you big into Masters history? Like, I would imagine you mentioned YouTube. I would be watching YouTube videos just all night long about old Masters and just, I mean, are you big into golf history?
I like to hear stories. So when Coach Bratton talks about when he played in school and this happened,
right?
I really like to listen to that stuff, but I'm not going to go out of my way to do research on it.
Sure.
So there's a lot that I don't know, but I do like to listen to, kind of not the older guys because he's going to rip into me, but I remember recently, or the latest time was probably for homecoming last year.
Sure.
And Ricky, Morgan Hoffman, Kevin Tway, and Peter Uerlein were here. And we played some golf together and hung out. So that's really cool that, the alumni care so much about this place, and they really obviously they had a good time when they were there, that, they care enough to come back and, try to help us, or, just hang out and have a good time. So that's really cool. And then, getting to talk to Charles Howell a little bit, and, how his times in college were, and, just listen to more stories. And I remember last year, again, in the fall, we had a team dinner in Dallas with a bunch of other alumni. And I remember there were guys that are, over 7 years old, playing with Coach Holder, and even before Coach Holder, and just, kind of hearing stories from their time. And it's pretty cool to listen to kind of the relationship that we all have together just because we went to Oklahoma State. It's a very strong bond, and it's really cool to be a part of.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. It's a time capsule. I mean, that it just goes back so far, and at any moment you can just pop in there, and that's gonna be you at some point. You're gonna be able to pop back in and share your stories. And when you closed out Cole Hammer at the USAM semis, your phone went haywire. Everyone wants to be your caddy at the Masters. So I know you've gotten that question, so I don't have to expect you to reply in Norwegian. So I will ask you this question instead. Instead of asking about who your caddy would be, which we all know it's going to be Coach Bratton, if you weren't playing in the Masters and you had the opportunity to caddy for someone, who would you caddy for?
Wow. Well, I am a big Tiger fan, so it'd be, it'd be pretty sweet to caddy for him,
Sure.
Especially if he, was coming down the stretch and doing his thing. I'd probably say Tiger.
That's a good choice. Final question before we let you get out of here. I don't know if you follow this, but the most recent, and I'm not making this up, I know it sounds like I am, but I'm not. In the most recent happiness report, Norway is ranked third happiest country on the planet, behind Denmark and Finland. Make your case.
What? I don't really believe that survey, because it's usually number one.
No, I'm going to send this to you, but make your case. Viktor Hovland, you have other than having a U.S. amateur champion from Norway, why are Norwegians so damn happy? Why should they be number one? Go ahead. Sell me on Norway.
Okay, well, it's funny when I go back, I'm just more miserable because the weather's so bad. But no, I mean, I think if you just talk about it generally, people are usually pretty well off. Unemployment rates are really low. People have money, and people are usually pretty active in sports.
Right.
People like to do stuff. And there's a good sense of community when it comes to, soccer. Every single kid growing up plays soccer. And, so it's hard to be really depressed if, you got something to do and you have a community that you've got mutual interest in. So, I think, and that's the same case for Denmark and Finland. Scandinavia is very similar that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Who amongst your teammates right now, if you took a golf trip, you had the culture shock coming down to Stillwater, coming to the United States. If you pack up the team and head out to Oslo for a week, who on your team is just going to be like, dude, I can't handle this? Like, where are we?
Zach Boshu for sure.
Nice. I got you. I finally got you to peg a teammate. I got it. Yes. All right. So why? Well, wait a minute. Boshu won 2 Canadian amateurs. He's used to the cold. Why can't he handle Oslo?
Well, the thing is, like, he's got a very different view on things. It's funny. We get into debates and discussion all the time, and we just rip into each other. So I think, it's a very common misconception that, Norway is, we do have a very strong welfare state, but it's not, we don't do communism, and we do have freedom as, you know, most other countries do as well. But
these are some serious damn topics for a golf podcast. I mean, this is, this is really, I'm not as bright as you, dude. So you got to slow this down. I forgot to ask you, who has the best Matthew Wolff swing impersonation?
Ooh, that's a good one. I haven't really, you know, most people usually get the backswing right.
Right.
Well,
the knee thing, the knee trigger. I
yeah,
mean, that's pretty simple. And then the backswing. Yeah.
But it's you know, it's pretty difficult to do. I've seen a lot of good attempts, but I wouldn't really give anyone the credit of doing a good impression on it.
Yeah, he seems to have it. He seems to have it pretty much dialed in.
Yeah.
Well, Viktor, this has been a lot of fun. You're great to talk to. Congrats on all your success. Enjoy the Masters. Get an Uber. Don't drive yourself. And yeah, you got that whole national championship thing coming up again. Trying to go back to back. I wish you the best with that, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up and do it again soon.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. I actually enjoyed this a lot more than I thought.
Oh, and you know what? The thing. Wait a minute. Hold on. We didn't get you to answer anything in Norwegian, so let me give you the benefit of closing the episode out in your native language. So let me see if I can ask you one. Okay. What do I know you've gotten before? Okay. How special was it to win the U.S. Amateur at Pebble Beach?
Det var veldig spesielt. Jeg spilte veldig god golf, og å gjøre det på Pebble Beach var utrolig kult med den historien som stod bak det.
And there you have it, in Norwegian, no less. Viktor Hovland, thanks so much for joining us here at the Back of the Range today. I hope everyone enjoyed this bonus episode. Good luck to him and Coach Bratton at the Masters this year and the rest of the Oklahoma State Cowboys as they chase down a national championship. Remember, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Go subscribe in Apple Podcast. Leave a review. I can't stress enough how important that is. Have a great weekend, everyone. We will see you next week for episode 67 here at the Back of the Range.